All right, gentlemen, first things first, how are you?
They were good.
Yeah, very, very well, very well. Tired, but good. Raring
How
to
you
go.
doing?
I'm great, great. Thank you for asking. So before we get into the upcoming album, I'd like to jump back to the beginning, if that's okay. Now, I don't know exactly, you were in your late teens when you first met, so it's a little bit ago, but do you remember your first impressions of each other?
That's a good question. I don't think we've been asked that. Um, Not really. I mean, I don't know. I feel like we met in some kind of language class at school. I remember that's the first time I met you. I think there was a guy, we had like a mutual friend sitting in between us, and then I was like, okay, I think I have something
Common.
in common with this guy. And that's who I remember. Like you're just like someone I had something in common with, and we clicked from there.
Yeah, I have a different end to that story actually.
Why?
I remember I met your sister first, and your sister was like, "Hey, I've got a brother that plays guitar. I reckon you guys will get on."
Is that right?
Yeah,
I didn't.
genuinely,
Okay, I didn't know
genuinely the thing.
that. But
Well, I
yeah,
didn't realize that you were Florence's brother when we became friends, which is
okay,
the strange.
yeah, fair enough.
No, but that's interesting because my follow-up would be, so did you know about each other that you played music and sorry, how did you kind of establish that connection musically?
I don't know. I think there was a
I think it was probably like a pretty quick common interest. I think we both knew that we liked possibly stuff that people in our environment weren't really like into. Maybe people were more into sport, but I think we kind of ended up gravitating more towards the music classes or like I don't know, whatever
yeah.
classes.
I guess like if you're listening to niche music at the age of 11 and 12, and no one at your school really listens to that, if someone has similar music taste, then you're obviously going to gravitate towards them, you know. So yeah, I think that was the start of it.
What was the appeal then to start up a band? Because it's one thing to have an interest in something, but then to actively pursue it is the next step. So how did you? What were those first kind of creative sessions like between the two of you?
Uh, I mean, it was probably all like when we started probably thinking about this kind of ideas, it was like when we like together, it was probably we were 13, 14. But
Okay.
I don't think we actively did anything about that for a couple of years. It was all talk and like, oh yeah, we're gonna play all these shows. Yeah, we got this set list of these non-existent songs and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. I think the first time that we made music was probably at my house in Ipswich, where I was growing up, and it was probably incredibly loose and
Primitive.
yeah, not great music, but you have to start somewhere. Um, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and let us
I guess that was kind of I don't know. I guess you end up kind of doing this. It's just a reaction to what your environment, which was probably the best way we could have found spending our time as opposed to doing whatever the other options were.
Mm.
Which, yeah.
Well, let me ask it this way then. When was when did you write something that you were proud of? When was the moment that things kind of flipped in a way where you think, hey, this is actually pretty good. Maybe we can do something with this.
I guess it's like subjective because I might have been proud of something at the time, but looking back on it now, I don't know. We
Probably when you're like 17.
yeah, when we were in Colchester and we met a couple of other lads to be in the band, and I reckon I can't think of like an exact tune. Maybe I don't know. I don't want to talk about these songs anyway because I don't want to. But
There was definitely a moment or two when we were like 17, where you're like, oh, this is good, or like something happened that's very insignificant, but to you at the time, or to me or Andy, felt pretty significant. But
yeah,
these moments are they develop with you, don't they?
Hmm. Because you mentioned Colchester, and I don't know the timeline exactly, but when did you decide to move to Brighton then?
We moved when we were about 18 years old, or
Okay.
maybe a year before, to go to university, but mainly for the music scene, and mainly to kind of explore our creativity, like in a creative city. So yeah.
Yeah, because you mentioned Colchester, and kind of doing music is better than some other things that you can spend your time with. And Brighton is known as this music city. So what was it like kind of pursuing that dream in a sense?
Yeah, it was really great. It was really great. It was nice to be somewhere where being creative at a young age was an important thing to a lot of people. And there was a lot of other people with similar goals and mindsets around you. I think that's a really healthy place to be. And it's like it's really motivating rather than being stuck somewhere which is kind of sterile, sort of, in terms of music scene, and you'll be stuck there if you don't spread your wings, so to speak.
Yeah, how important is it to be able to live life, so to say, in order to write good music?
Very important. I mean, I guess it depends solely on some, like how someone writes music, or like how their creativity, their creative drive is. But mine is solely kind of from the emotional life and the things that go on in my life. So I mean, I think that's an incredibly important thing.
Release a couple of EPs and things are on the up and up, and then the whole world shuts down and kind of takes the wind out of your sails. Just before everything happened, what was the ambition at that point? Because you have a really nice lyric in one of the songs, "Death and ambition go hand in hand." So what was before the whole world shut down? What was the ambition of the band?
I think the whole thing was kind of looking forward to the debut record. That was such an important thing for us, and that was very much on the cards and on our horizon pre-pandemic. So that was the first step. I mean, like I think we have a lot of goals, but that was kind of the first important step for us, and that was
I think we had an idea that we were gonna. I think I might be wrong, but Body of Itch, our second EP, kind of just came out just as COVID was hit.
Yeah, it was afterwards. Yeah,
but we had plans to do lots of, I guess, like really cut our teeth and push our live game, you know. And then, as you've already just said, thinking about the album, but I don't know. You know.
But you just mentioned that you have a lot of goals. So can I assume you are quite ambitious?
for sure. Yeah, I mean, we've been dreaming of this kind of lifestyle for a long time. So I mean, there's no other way to be than very ambitious.
Well, let's talk about the creative process then, because I assume it's different for each song. But what is generally the way you write songs then?
I'd say the most general way is I come up with an idea and I structure it, and then I bring it to the band. I'll make a little demo and I'll bring it to the band, and we'll put it in a rehearsal room, and we'll all kind of like put our ideas into it and move it around, and maybe add parts or remove parts, and it kind of works like that. Or sometimes it can be we'll randomly start jamming, and it'll be like 18 or 19 minutes long, and this is how a single Matador, which is on the record, came about. Is from this 18-minute jam, and I listened back to it, and there's about 3 or 4 seconds, about 17 minutes in, and I was like, oh, that's the riff. So then I like made the song out of that. So like it can vary a lot, but like generally those are the two ways.
But do you like to be in a room together to kind of figure it out? Is that important? Because that's also something that was difficult, I suppose, the last couple of years.
Yeah. I mean, I like to get a basis of a song on my own. Like if it's a very emotional thing, I like to build that bottom layer, and then like being with everyone else and sharing the ideas and changing things around is a completely different entity. But like they're both as enjoyable as each other. Really.
I guess it kind of adds like an extra like filter layer as well, you know, where stuff naturally filters its way through and like gets to a point where it gets past those points, you know what I mean? But,
But when you talk about a debut album, then what are you focusing in on? What are you looking for that kind of first, the kind of introduction to the band in a sense?
I mean, like we had an idea of what the album was going to be like a year and a half ago, and that's completely changed. It's completely changed. But I don't think there's ever a goal because your life and your inspiration is like constantly evolving. So it's purely based on in the moment and what you're feeling. Like for us, like what we're feeling at any given time, and you know that becomes the record. It's never like, you know, we want it to sound like this, we want this. It's like it's like a very natural thing, and like
well, there's never that. I guess it's kind of adds to like the filter idea, you know, in the fact that it sort of becomes obvious what you're doing at first, you know what I mean? Like these like songs will come about or an idea will exist or something will happen which is like enough to really pull us in to like pursue that, and then you know then it becomes obvious where you're going, but there's no like plan or start as such really.
If we talk about the title track then, because I read somewhere that this was actually intended for a next album, is that true?
Yeah, it was meant to be the track that we built the second record around. That's what it felt like when it was written.
And so how did the decision come up to make it kind of the key piece for the debut album?
I think we were both pretty adamant that we should have. We were like, yeah, this should definitely be on the second record.
Yeah,
I think the other boys were like, definitely not.
It seemed like a natural progression, and I was thinking like this feels like a title track, and I feel like it's for the next one. I remember we played it to our label, and they were like, "Well, why are you putting this on the next record? You have to put this on this record. This is, you know, really good tune." And I think we gave into that.
Well,
point.
one thing I can hear in the song, you can kind of hear the development. I don't know if that makes sense, but it feels like it's a little bit more evolved, that particular song. Am I right in saying that, or how do you perceive it?
Yeah, I think it is. And we all felt like that as well. It felt like a special song when it came together. So yeah,
it feels like a good place for us to like cut off that first record as well, because it kind of like it was the last thing to really come about nearly, I think. So it kind of felt like a good place to leave people, you know, and ourselves thinking about where we are now and where we can go, you know.
Where does a song like that start? Is it just a riff? Is it just maybe a piece of lyric? Where did that song start?
So this one started. I remember I had this kind of like effect on one of my pedals, which was Oriental kind of sounding, and I was just playing around with a pentatonic scale because that's just all it is. And our drummer was kind of like rubbing his sticks on the cymbals, and it sounded very like Oriental, and like I really enjoyed it, and like I couldn't stop thinking about this riff. And I think I went home that evening and kind of like mapped out the whole song. And I was like, this is what's going to happen. And it was sort of this obsession. So yeah, that's kind of how it came about.
And when do lyrics come in, or and again, is that something you do collectively, or is that very personal as well?
No, so it's like kind of whoever sings is singing their own words. Um, it depends because like there's a track called Geisha on the record, and that had about a year without lyrics, and I wrote the lyrics maybe a week before we recorded it, and I couldn't think of anything. But then A Living Commodity, that I'm pretty sure that was like on the day or the day after, and like they just come to. That's the way I see it and like view writing lyrics, is that it's not something you actively should pursue. It's the lyrics will come to you, you know?
Yeah, I read something, and again, I don't know if this is true, but that when the band first was started, you'd go to pubs and you'd pick up things that people would say around the pub. Is that accurate?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like certainly with the first EP, a lot of the lyric inspiration was just overhearing people say random stuff or listening on the radio and stuff like that. But that kind of I don't really do that anymore. I don't know why. Maybe just don't go to the pub as much.
Yeah,
Possibly.
How close are you to the lyrics in that sense? Is there a personal element in them in that sense then?
On this record, 100%, because a lot of the songs are emotionally driven and emotionally based on things that happen in my life.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the most difficult song to get finished that ended up on the album? And it can be both musically or lyrically.
I'd say Geisha. Geisha for sure. Because I wrote this demo and I brought it to the band and I was like, I don't know about this. And everyone was like, no, let's keep doing it. And it sounded terrible. It was so bad, and I was just like, let's just forget about it. All right.
but even when we were recording this, do you remember that?
Before we were gonna record it, I was like, I still don't know about this song. And then like I heard it through the speaker, and I was like,
I think this might be one of my favorites on the record, you know.
Yeah.
A few things happened to it. And then I'm pretty sure you turned up with lyrics around there.
And I was like,
this was like done one of the last weeks of recording.
Yeah, so Geisha for sure, that like it took a long time.
From Geisha, I really like that outro. Is it sometimes do you get the feeling just to let the music go? Is that kind of was that the mentality with that outro?
Yeah, I think what happened is I had that little, just like the guitar bit at the start of that outro, and then together we naturally let it go wherever. We were doing that in the practice room and doing it over and over and over again. Yeah, and that's how it came. It was good though. It's like, I think I recorded the first time we gave it a go. And sometimes you do stuff on the first time that you'll never be able to do again, just like weird little things. And I remember listening, I was like, let's like try and repeat what we did. So yeah.
I believe you just came off, maybe not just, but you toured with the Murder Capital, and you've also toured with the FOALS, which are two different animals, I suppose. So, is there a big difference in how you approach an audience, or a difference in audience?
Yeah, because I mean, you learn so much doing those tours. It's crazy. It's like before the first time we toured with Murder Capital, we were playing to maximum 150 cap rooms, and that was probably the biggest rooms we played to. And then we toured with them, and we're kind of breaking how many people we played to every night. And then before you knew it, it was 2,500. So like, on that tour, that was a bit of a stepping stone. FOALS was a bit crazier. I mean, but like, I don't know. Was it like 7,000, 8,000 people in Amsterdam or Paris or something like that? It's after you do that, those smaller rooms, you get a lot more confident for it, you know. So like you can mature your sound, mature your attitude on stage. It's good.
the shows kind of approach you differently as well. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of not about how you approach them in a way, because it kind of like as soon as you get there, it becomes a different entity, you know, and like it's just instincts. We start having to deal with it in our own however we deal with it, and then that's how it should be, you know. I wouldn't say it's too like thought about how we're going into these environments. It's not like too planned out, you know, really.
Yeah.
But I can imagine, and we talked a little bit about ambition earlier, but when you play those bigger shows, I mean, that resets the bar, I suppose, right? Because what is the ambition? What are some of the goals that you have? Is it certain festivals? Is it?
I mean, yeah, it'd be great to play some festivals, but I think it's just like release more captivating and like emotive albums and keep having an emotional connection with people. So that's a goal. What were we saying before about the stages? They're playing those stages.
Well, no, that I can imagine that whenever you set a goal for yourself and you kind of accomplish it, that resets the bar. So you set the bar higher for yourself. So I imagine that's continuously happening.
Yeah, for sure. I think to do Jules Holland would be an unbelievable thing. That's a big goal, a big ambition. There's some others, but I don't want to taint it.
Fair enough. One last question then. One song that really stuck out on the album was Apparent Cause, and I wondered how that came together, because it does have quite a different feel than the other songs.
Yeah, do you know what? Like in most interviews that we do, people bring this up, and it's interesting. It was like there was a song which was meant to be on the album called Racketeering, and it never made it. And I hadn't written any lyrics for it, and I went home to write some lyrics, and I was playing the riff for it, which is the riff from Apparent Cause now, and I just had this effect on by accident in my Logic file, and I thought it sounded really cool, so I just slowed it down and made it into this song like in one go, and then wrote the lyrics in one go, and yeah, that was it. That was it. So I think the next week we went into the studio and just did it in like half an hour, maybe.
But I can imagine, again, thinking about the live shows, a song like that would create a nice dynamic in the live shows, or is that not something, as you mentioned earlier, not really conscious of?
I mean, I think you always have to think about like you know, the pace that you're setting for an audience, you know, like a fast pace or like down songs. Yeah, I think it will be. We've never played that song live before.
Okay.
But I think tomorrow night in Antwerp is the first time we're gonna play it. So
okay.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Gonna be interesting. Gentlemen,
Yeah.
may I thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me.
Thank you, Robin.